Hey, what's up, everybody? We got a good Ringer NBA show today with me and Chris Vernon here in Caesars Palace in Las Vegas. Before we get to that, you got to check out TheRinger.com. We have an article by Shea Serrano about his experience seeing the Las Vegas Aces this weekend. I was there with him. It was an amazing time, and Shea perfectly captured just what was honestly an amazing WNBA game. I had a good time. Check out Shea's article. And also shout out to Mark Titus for letting us use his hotel room at Caesars Palace to record this podcast with me and Verno. And also be sure to check out Titus and Tate Frazier, One Shining Podcast. They're recording throughout the summer, despite the fact the college basketball season is over. Check out their show. It's always fun, always insightful. And now let's get to the show.
Welcome to the Ringer NBA show. I'm Chris Vernon, and joining me as he does every Tuesday from TheRinger.com, and this time in person, Kevin O'Connor, a.k.a. Kevin O'Bomber, a.k.a. Kevin O'Concert, a.k.a. Kevin O'Conflict, a.k.a. Kevin O'Climber, and he's in person with me.
Yes!
Kevin!
Yes! We're in person, Verno. This is
great. We are in Caesars Palace, overlooking beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada.
Some dope swimming pools here at Caesars Palace.
There are some nice swimming pools at Caesars Palace. And so we have been able to, we've been around to be around each other a bunch throughout this week and watch a lot of basketball over at the gyms. I guess we'll start with standouts, right? You go to the gym, and last year, I remember us doing this podcast, and Donovan Mitchell and Jason Tatum. Yeah. I mean, it was pretty obvious when you watched those guys. There were a lot of moments where you would watch them and you would think that's the best player on the floor. Yes. Or possibly, what did we miss about this guy? More so Mitchell than Tatum, obviously, because he went a little bit later. This year, in terms of being there and watching so far, I think the first one is going to maybe surprise some people. But there have been, like, the moment for me, I think 2 or 3 different times has happened, one of which was, interestingly, a second-year player, and that's Jonathan Isaac. There have been
first guy on my list, too, Chris.
Really?
Yeah.
There's been at least twice where I've been at the games, and there's a 5 to 10-minute span where I'm watching the game, and I think, this guy is just better than everybody else out on the court. And he's one of these guys that just kind of, he got lost in the conversation. He really had a very insignificant rookie year.
Yeah, injury riddled.
He's
out a lot.
He was a very high pick by the Orlando Magic, but he was just off the radar last year. And then he comes back this year, and I remember when I saw him in the preseason last year, there was a moment where he was standing next to Chandler Parsons and guarding him, and he just towered over Parsons. And Parsons is a legit 6'10", 6'11". And I'm like, how big is this kid? I am convinced he did the Giannis thing and he grew.
I think he did.
Yeah, he's over 7 feet.
I don't think he's over 7 feet, but he was listed at 6'10". I think he might be like 6'11", 6'11 and a half. I think he looks a little bit taller, but maybe if he's not taller, he's at least stronger. He's wider. His body has really filled out and he looks unbelievable.
Well, and it was the ball handling. I mean, when you are that big and he looks so skilled on the perimeter, I'm watching that and I'm like, holy mackerel, like this guy was off the radar, but they may have something really special here.
And with Isaac, that was the interesting thing in the draft. So entering the draft at Florida State, it was like, oh, he's got the first step. He looks like he could potentially become a guy who can create off the dribble, but his handle was pretty weak. He wasn't able to create much space. He didn't have advanced moves. And now he's looking better. That dribble's a little bit tighter, that he's taking advantage of that first step. And he's looking a little bit better offensively. And it's not just offense, though, either. Like, that dude can defend with his size and length. And not just size and length and athleticism, but, like, intent, willingness to defend. He's looking like a potentially really good two-way player this season for the Orlando Magic. Encouraging.
And you talk to people, and by all accounts, really great kid.
Yeah, he's a really good kid.
Right? Yeah. He's an interesting one because I don't think that this has gotten a lot of attention. Again, wasn't a big season. It was injury riddled for him. He wasn't a topic of conversation like ever.
And his offense wasn't there yet. It still might not be there. It's just summer league, but it's definitely a step forward. No doubt about that.
But on the personality side, he's like a very devout Christian. Like, he invited all the Magic
I didn't know that.
to come to like a church where he like did a sermon.
Mm-hmm.
Like he is this guy who's got
Oh,
this
yes, I did know that.
real,
yeah,
like,
I remember now.
well,
My brain just doesn't work sometimes.
It's interesting because you don't hear that a lot,
Yeah,
right? You
yeah, I
don't
remember
hear
that.
about NBA players inviting the rest of their
Yeah.
teammates to church. Say whatever you want about it, right? He is a guy that by all accounts is a good guy, and you know, in the words of Migos, walks it like he talks it, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it. And
Yeah.
I think, you know, for the Orlando Magic fans, shout out to Kevin Clark from The Ringer,
Yep.
the only Magic fan on the planet that I know of. Kevin has always like been sad talking about Orlando. His mood gets
Right.
down. It's very depressing talking basketball with Kevin Clark. But right now, I think Magic fans should be feeling pretty good because it's not just Isaac either. Mo Bamba's length on defensive end of the floor is altering shots around the rim, even if he doesn't get a hand on it. I think with like their team is so long with Mo Bamba, Jonathan Isaac, Melvin Frazier out there, Wesley Iwundu, like they are huge.
Yep.
They cover the whole floor with just those four guys.
Well, and let me ask you
and then
this.
add Aaron Gordon on with his new big contracts. Ooh, they get some nice little young players.
Because what happens is everybody goes to the games to see Bamba, and Isaac's the one you end
Yeah.
up talking
Yeah.
about. I will tell you, and you were king of the Bamba-believers.
The Bamba-believers.
You were the king of the Bamba-believers.
Our producer Kyle's laughing in the background
Yeah.
with that. Yeah.
You were the king of the Bamba-believers. And so I went to go watch him. And I'm not going to say I'm a full-on Bamba-believer, but I was very impressed. I was.
You know, I was chugging Bamba Kool-Aid before we got on this podcast.
He's going
So I'm
to
excited
get pushed
talk about
around,
this.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think
yeah.
what's going to befell him is people are going to look at the paper and they're going to go, 4 rebounds? Like what? Because he's going to have those games. Yeah. He is. Once these guys, because you can push him out of the way.
Yeah, he's 19 years old. I think he just turned 20, but whatever. He's still a young kid, and he hasn't experienced NBA strength and conditioning program and all that stuff.
Well,
he'll get stronger. It's going to come in time for all these bigs.
But sometimes guys are a first punch guy, right? They throw the first punch. Ball's coming off the rim. Somebody bangs into somebody. He's not that guy, right? He's the guy that typically gets banged. And so that will come, right? He's certainly, when you're there in person, he is one of these guys, in my estimation, that you do need to see in person to fully appreciate, because it is an absolute freak show how long he is. It's crazy. I mean, it's one thing to read like, oh, he's got an 8-foot wingspan and it's the longest, like it's like Rudy Gobert-esque, whatever.
7'9" to be specific.
Oh, is that right?
Just to be specific.
When you see it in person, though,
yeah,
he's so much bigger than everyone, right?
Is.
And he does well finishing. I've watched him hit a corner 3. I've watched him dream shake.
It's like Tommy Heinsohn has a line where he says he can tie his shoes without bending over.
Yeah, skilled kid though. He is
for sure.
skilled.
Bamba. I think some of these bigs do look more impressive. Jaren Jackson has had some nice moments as well. Wendell Carter, another guy that I really really liked. He's been pretty damn good for the Bulls.
He's been great.
One of the knocks on him pre-draft was like, defense is a concern. He's sluggish feet. And like, I always thought that was a little bit overblown. And now that like his body looks a lot better, it looks like he's really trimmed some body fat since the end of the season at Duke, which is to be expected when you're focusing exclusively on basketball. He's looking better defensively, in addition to the fact that like he can do some things on offense. And we'll see how he pans out, but I'm encouraged early on. And Bulls fans should be too, with the Carter Markkanen front court. Pretty fun.
And I've made some excuses for the Duke kids. Obviously, I was on the Bagley train in the whole defensive thing.
Have you jumped off the train yet?
Oh, hell no.
Okay,
no
good.
way.
Good. I was going to say,
no
don't
way.
jump. Even though I'm not on the Bagley train, I was going to say, don't jump off yet.
No way. I ain't going anywhere.
Yeah, don't.
But I've made excuses for them defensively because, listen, they play zone. They played zone at Duke, and people can use that against these kids. But the truth is, they were all freshmen. They're playing together for the first time. And zone, anybody that's ever played basketball, it's lazy.
That's Coach K's fault.
But
Coach K didn't want. It's like shout out to Mark Titus for letting us use his hotel room to record this.
That's right.
The One Shining podcast guys. It's true. Like Coach K, coach him up to play man. The zone defense wasn't the fault of Bagley or Carter. Put that on coaching.
It's also the truth that it's hard to be extremely active when you're playing that way. In fact, I heard they interviewed Bagley, and they were talking about the defensive knocks, and he was saying, okay, so you guys want to talk about my blocks, I played on the
Wait,
side.
who said this?
Bagley.
Bagley said this?
Yeah.
What about his reaction time? That's what I would say to him. What about your awareness?
This is what he said, though. If you want to talk, he said, if you want to talk about the blocks, right? Mm-hmm. Things get funneled to the middle, mm-hmm. right? So Wendell Carter had a lot of blocks, and he said, when I was in the middle, I blocked a lot of shots. He said, "What do you want me to block on the wing?"
Sounds like excuses to me. It's not about your block shots. It's about your lean body. It's about your short arms. It's about your reaction time and your awareness.
All right.
Not the like.
Don't you slander
I know.
Marvin Bagley to my face. It's different on the phone.
Yeah. But right here, we might throw fists. Kyle, get ready to break this up. Let's go. Let's go right now.
If this man don't stop talking about Marvin Bagley in my face.
Let's go.
All right. The other ones that have jumped off the page, I think we spent a tremendous amount of time on the Orlando Magic. Oh, one more thing real quick. Bamba, Isaac, Gordon. Can they all three play together?
Yeah. I think so.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
How?
Give him time.
Who's the three?
Gordon.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, you can play. You look,
but isn't he best suited as a four?
Everybody's so small ball obsessed. You can play with size if they're skilled. Gordon is a skilled player, and he's still super young. Look, yes, these guys do need to improve their jump shots. Isaac needs to improve his three. Gordon needs to improve his three, and Bamba needs to prove he's more than just a theoretical shooter. But yeah, they can play together because of their size and length on the defensive end of the floor, and the fact that you can really mix and match them. You want to play Isaac at the 5 with Gordon at the 4, play super small ball, boom. Want to put Bamba at the 5 and play rim running center, have Gordon at the 4, boom, you can do it. There's so many different little things you could do that I think Orlando's new head coach Steve Clifford can get really, really creative with the combinations as those guys develop into their primes.
Other ones that have been mega impressive. Certainly, there's been a tremendous amount of buzz on Kevin Knox.
Yeah, Kevin Knox, he's been great. He hasn't shot the ball well yet, which we'd like to see, but like he's doing all the other stuff. Like he had two plays I want to mention, Chris. He had a play where I think he cut baseline, I believe, and he just whipped the pass to a corner 3 shooter. It's like a little thing like that, more than just a scorer. And then on the defensive end of the floor, he's been grinding. He's been hustling, defending multiple positions. And that's something that Mike Schmitz from Draft Express pointed out on Twitter before the draft. He's like, so much focus on Knox at Kentucky and how he didn't really defend well there. He's like, well, when I saw him at this level, at this competition, he was doing this. Like, look at these highlights. And it's like, yeah. At the high school level, he was awesome defensively, and perhaps we're going to see that now at the NBA level in addition to his scoring potential, which pretty clear lane for him to be a really good scorer.
I was told before the draft that Calipari was calling all kinds of teams saying Kevin Knox he's the one off my team. Yeah. Like he is going to be the real deal. He was a big fan of his, and Cal always does the tongue-in-cheek, I didn't use him right, or you know what I mean. Like the reason he didn't do as much is because because what you look up and you see Karl Towns doing what he did more. If you watch Karl Towns, right? If you watch him in Kentucky and then watch him in the pros, if you watch Devin Booker Kentucky and then watch him in the pros, a lot of
Devin
these
Booker
guys
never ran pick and roll,
right?
Yeah.
Much better suited, and Knox feels that way. It feels when you are watching him like, holy mackerel, with a wide open game and more space out here on the floor, he is much better suited for this.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, he's so athletic. Yeah. So athletic, and the shot hasn't really come yet. It's a small sample. Just don't it's like the opposite of like Jaren Jackson. It's like Jaren Jackson can shoot, but like don't overreact to the 8.38 game. He's not like Kyle Korver. He's not Stephen Curry shooting half-court jumpers, but like the truth is somewhere in the middle. It's encouraging.
So when we were going into the draft, I kept telling you that we are going to look back, and we know there are going to be busts. We know there are going to be guys that we go back in time and we go, my God, how was he selected there?
Yes.
Okay? Most of these guys that you have watched or I have watched so far, and you go down, and we've already mentioned Ayton, Bagley, Carter, even Knox.
I know where you're going with this.
We haven't seen Luka, okay?
No.
But if we're narrowing it down,
it's
first impressions of, oh my God, this could go really the wrong way. It has to be Trae. And I know everybody's saying, don't overreact. Summer league means nothing. I'm telling you this, Kevin. Over the years, I have seen little guys absolutely kill it in summer league. Nate Robinson's number is retired, all right? And whether it is Josh Selby.
Well, they should retire Nate Robinson's number across the NBA, to be fair. When a small guy that much can dunk over Yao Ming, let's be real here.
But when you see like Russ Smith out of Louisville, and you see Josh Selby, and you see all kinds of little guys over the years. It is so built for them. And in fact, the game is much harder in the NBA for those guys. You see them demolish Summer League, and they get to the NBA, and the same crap they could do in Summer League, they can't do when the competition gets real. And so that is the type of guy that has been really successful. In fact, because it's kind of, these games, sometimes they feel like almost like all-star games. It's bad for big guys. And so you don't want to read too much in, right?
Never feed them the ball.
Yeah,
all these guards are shot.
It's not
they
real
just want to throw up
basketball.
shots.
And you get to chuck, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I told you this. I was worried when I remember on Selection Sunday and their name popped up and I said, what the hell? I said, I swear to God, I watched them. Every time I watched them for the last 2 months, they lost. Every time. And then they said whatever, and I'm going to get this wrong, but it was something so extreme. They were like, Oklahoma lost 13 of their last 15 games. I was like, what the? And I remember when they said it on TV, I was like, wait, they really did lose every time I watched them. It wasn't just.
They were really bad at the end of the season.
And he wasn't hitting shots.
No, he wasn't.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So it's not like it's like Trey Young the shooter. It was like October, November, December, non-conference schedule, right?
He was amazing to start the season.
Yes.
Drew all the Stephen Curry comps, and then it just fell apart. It fell apart for
people
him.
Didn't recognize that he nor that team were frankly any good the last part of the season.
Well, that's part of it. Is his teammates weren't very good at Oklahoma, and
Here's the thing, Kev. This really comes down to whether or not you were a Trae Young believer or not. Because if you're a Trae Young believer, you're saying this doesn't matter. And if you were a
it's all confirmation bias.
If you were a Trae Young skeptic, you go,
yeah. Well, and that's why I think you need to, be cautious either way. Is like with Trae Young. Yeah, I agree with you 100% that I thought he was going to come into Summer League and just kill, because this is built for him. This is built for players like him just to dominate, and he has not done that. That's extremely concerning. And I think one of the things that's been a little bit overlooked with him is so Liam Flynn from Cleaning the Glass had an article in early June before the draft about Trae Young shooting at Oklahoma, and his takeaway was primarily that Trey's probably going to be a better shooter in the NBA than he was in college because of the fact of the high degree of difficulty of the shots that he was taking. He can shoot off screens potentially. He's really good from close to the line in NBA range. And the concerning part to me is the fact that he shot 27% from three outside of 30 feet. So Steph Curry range, like deep threes. That's what helps separate Steph, Klay Thompson, these elite, truly elite shooters is their ability to knock down shots from super deep. Because you stretch the defense more, you're harder to defend. And Trae Young is not an all-time great shooter.
So we see highlights of him shooting from the logo, but what we don't see is that he missed 70% of those.
Taking those shots is one thing, but making them is another. And he has not proven that he is an all-time great shooter. I think it's unfair to expect that from him. I think he can become a great shooter. I think he'd be a very good shooter and maybe even one of the better shooters in the league, but I don't think he's going to be the best shooter in the league. I don't think he's going to be an all-time great shooter, and that's going to be the difference between him and Steph Curry, in addition to the fact that he's 2 inches smaller than Steph Curry, not as athletic as Steph Curry, doesn't handle the ball as well as Steph Curry. If you're expecting Steph Curry from Trae Young, you're going to be disappointed. You need to be looking at more maybe he can become Damian Lillard, and even that could be asking for a lot as well. Trae is going to be an NBA player with his shooting ability, and his passing ability is quite good as well, and that's been pretty impressive. But the defense, the shooting is not all-time great. We'll see how he pans out.
You also have to be able to finish.
Yeah, you got to be able to finish on the rim. And there's a lot of knocks. There's a lot of concerns with him. His rookie year is going to be a struggle, put it that way. But it doesn't mean he'll be a bust because of his shooting potential.
Well, and part of it is when we are talking about how much more space can help you. I think that's why the little guys, right? We watched last year, and I think there's a lot of guys like this. More space helped Jason Tatum. More space helped Donovan Mitchell. In fact, I was talking to Kevin Pelton yesterday, and I was talking to him about kind of just what analytics missed on some of these guys, because the numbers going into the draft will tell you maybe a little bit different story. And he brought up some interesting points. He said, number one, he said both Tatum and Mitchell, and this was shocking to me, if you go and look at their rookie year, their percentage in the restricted area was exceptionally higher than it was when they were in college. And so with Tatum, you could say because he had more space. With Mitchell, he brought up a very interesting one. And I'd never heard anybody talk about this before. He said in college, if you go back and watch, Mitchell was a 2-foot leaper. And he learned how to jump off of 1 foot.
Yeah, well, that's why stats are limited.
And
you need to scout.
Right. And so he learned to jump off of 1 foot, and it changed everything. And in fact, I was talking to somebody last night, a front office, an NBA front office guy last night, and I brought up the Mitchell thing, right? About the jumping off of 2 feet, and then how that almost that transferred to ability to finish at the rim. And Pelton told me that there's a kid like that this year. And he said, if you watch, he said it's Miles Bridges. And the interesting thing is going to be if Bridges can learn like Mitchell did to jump off 2 feet. And I mentioned this to this NBA front office guy. And you know what he said? He said, that's why I loved Okogie. Mm-hmm. The kid from Georgia Tech.
Yeah, he's really good.
There's a Wake Forest.
I love Okogie.
Okay.
Really good.
He said the same thing, though. He's a 2-foot guy, and I remember saying that in our meeting, if we can get this kid to jump off of 1 foot, right, the amount of stuff he's going to be able to finish at the rim is going to change dramatically because you are restricted. If you just think about it, right, you are restricted if you're a 2-foot leaper. And so I thought that was a little bit interesting with Mitchell. I thought that was interesting with it'll be something to monitor with Bridges and also the Okogie kid.
Well, with Mitchell, I think with him, not only was he just like a 2-foot leaper, he also took a lot of wild shots.
Right.
A lot of and that's partially because he was more comfortable off 2 feet. But, I think some of it was shot selection with him as well. And I think with Mitchell, one of the things I liked about him is he was one of those guys who uses both hands. I always harp on like Ben Simmons only using his right hand around the rim, and never using his right hand to shoot jumpers. And like he's a dominant finisher because of his size and athleticism. But for little guys, they don't necessarily have that advantage. Let me not dominant. He's like very good finisher, Ben Simmons. With Mitchell, it's like he always finished with both hands, left and right, always had touch. And he just cut down the wild shots, improved as a 1-foot finisher at the rim. And he's like added creative finishes as well. So for some of those guys you mentioned, like that can be what leads to greater success at finishing on the rim. That's what can help them when it comes to finishing against contact, finishing off balance. And I'll be very curious to see how that changes for Miles Bridges. I think it's been a little bit encouraging for him early on too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yesterday I watched him have 20 points, 7 rebounds, no turnovers. Mm-hmm. He looks athletically superior to his opponents. Right? Yeah. You wonder, you know he's a freak of nature athletically in college.
And I still don't love him. I like him. I still don't love him, but he's really good. He'll be a good player.
When you watch him out on that court, though, he outjumps people, right? And he outruns people. Yeah. And so does that, you wonder when you start to weed it down, right? And you're not watching him play against Northwestern. No slander to Northwestern. I'm just saying there ain't Northwestern guys that are out there in this game, all right? And you watch him you're like, wow, he looks like an amazing athlete. Like he still looks like an amazing athlete when it's been weeded down to NBA prospects.
You have me thinking about the stats part. It's interesting. Like so much of it is like contextual too, because is a player playing in a system with 2 big men where the lane is clogged, right? Like so many little things.
That exact thing was brought up to me yesterday. So
one quick example.
Yeah.
So Terry Rozier. Years back in the 2014 draft, he was somebody I wasn't very high on. And then like in early June, when I like try to like erase my mind and look at things again, like I re-looked at Terry Rozier. I was like, okay, I'm way too low on this guy. Bumped him up to like 30-ish or something like that. Maybe I think it was 20-ish actually, high 20s. And so I still didn't love him, but I liked him a lot more. And he was somebody where it was like, oh, he played with 2 big men, constantly clogging the lane. My hesitation with him was his touch still isn't that good. Mm-hmm. Like he still doesn't have great touch, and he still struggles finishing in the NBA now, but he's better because he's playing with a spaced floor. Still not great, but better. And I think there's so many little things like that where you need to look at the context behind the number, or rather just look at the context and then like see what the number is.
You know who the greatest example of that is? And I brought this up to him because when that whole draft radar came out, Pelton broke it into 2 different columns, one of which was analytics and what the scouts say, right? Maybe the absolute worst player that you will find that was drafted highly numbers-wise, was Jaylen Brown.
Oh, and trust me, I remember. Trust me.
He was, if you based it upon the analytics from college, he was undraftable.
Trust me, I remember.
And he said,
I remember being on Boston Sports Talk Radio, like getting in arguments about Jaylen Brown before the draft.
And here's what he said.
And after
exact
the draft,
same
for that
thing.
matter.
They played with two bigs.
Yep.
And he said, and here's
Ivan Rabb and that other dude who escapes me at the moment.
And he said, here's what we missed on him.
What a bunch of that team was a joke. There's a lot of NBA talent on that team. Ivan Rabb drafted Jabari Bird on the Celtics, a pretty good two-way player.
And they played very slow.
Yeah, they were a disgrace to watch. I hated like they had so much talent on that team.
Shout out to Conto Martin.
Oh my God, what a pain watching that team.
So, anyways, you know what Pelton said? If you isolated Jaylen Brown's power forward minutes, I think that's what the Celtics did. If you isolated his power forward minutes while he was at California, you will see a radically different player than when he played small forward and was out on the floor with the two big guys. And that's what it misses, right? It's almost like sometimes you got to do stuff like that, right? You go back and you look and isolate when he wasn't out there with the two big guys. And that would have told you he's really good. Right?
I mean, like even like with the NBA draft guide, like sometimes I'm like, why do we even put the numbers there?
I know,
right? Like the basic box score stats line. It's just that's why we have like the per 40 below and like the effective field goal percentage instead of like points and all that, because it's like at least it's a little bit more valuable like to project a guy ahead. But even then, it's like, I don't know. I mean, I honestly am somebody where I don't really care much for college stats. I just don't. I've never have been. There's little things you gotta look for sometimes, but oftentimes it's like you mentioned in your conversation with Pelton. It's more contextual. Try to look for instances where like the guy's playing the 4 or playing the 5, or what's going to better reflect what the circumstances and environment will be in the NBA for that particular player. And that's incredibly difficult to do because there's only 30-ish games for each college player. So then like if you're like, you know, if you're putting all these like settings in, right? So like say I want this, it's like, oh, you might have like 80 minutes of a sample. Right. It's like so ultimately it doesn't mean a lot. That's why I mean I'm somebody who with college primarily, I think you need to scout more than anything else. With NBA, there's so much more data that's available. You have synergy. You have synergy for college too, but you might have a larger sample. You have second spectrum for NBA teams. You have so much at your disposal. You have the athletic testing, all that stuff that teams have, where there's just so much more that you can use to do pro personnel scouting to figure out guys. Whereas college, it's like, just gonna watch, I think, really. One
of the other interesting things that has taken place throughout here through Summer League is everybody goes and watches this rookie class who we were all excited about. One of the narratives has not been, which I think certainly is worth bringing up. Typically when you come to this, you're watching first and second year guys. But last year's class was so damn good.
Oh, it was awesome.
We see none of them. We don't see, we're not seeing Tatum. We're not seeing Mitchell. We're not seeing, you go up and down that list. We're not even seeing Lauri Markkanen. Yeah. We're not even seeing guys like Dylan Brooks, who was selected in the second round, right? I mean, like guys played a lot of minutes last year.
It's almost surprising when we do see guys.
Right?
Yeah.
That's why Isaac stands out like a sore thumb. Mm-hmm. Isaac reminds me of Brandon Ingram last year.
Jetty Osmond, second or third year player, I forget, but second year player, because I remember last summer Ty Lue was asked, have you watched Jetty Osmond? He's like, nope. So yeah, last year was Jetty's first year in the NBA. Like, even someone like him, he had a big game the other night.
So did Korkmaz.
Yeah, yep.
At the very beginning of this thing,
points,
right?
Yeah, he lit it up.
I mean, but you see the difference. I remember Brandon Ingram played at the very beginning and then got that injury scare, and you never saw him again.
Yeah.
The one guy we could have seen was the number 1 pick overall, and that is Markelle Fultz, and I know you are keenly aware and interested in a recent story about him.
Yeah, I mean, like there was a story posted on SI and ESPN. I guess there was like a room full of like 5, I don't know how many reporters, but with Brett Brown and the team owner Josh Harris just talking about like, oh, Markelle Fultz, we at the end of every season we talked to the player and we proved him working with Drew Hanlon and all that. He's coming along so great, blah blah blah, this and that. And it's like, what's the point of like you telling this to the media? Like, why bring a handful of reporters in to tell them this? It's a weird little thing to do. And conspiracy theory, I have no reason to say this other than my own conspiracy, is like maybe you're just trying to increase his trade value by putting this out there. Just throwing it out there. Hey, Fultz is coming along.
Can I sell you out completely?
Sure.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you that me and Kevin were sitting together at a game, and I know the exact moment that Kevin bailed completely on Markelle Fultz.
Oh, hey,
And
let me say this before you say it. I would never bail completely on a 19-year-old number one pick.
You were done. I'm not
Kevin,
done.
I'm not
you
done.
were done.
I'm not done.
Markelle Fultz was woofing down cheese fries on the front row at the game. I mean, woofing them at a pace of a man who had not eaten in weeks. Like he had been walking through the desert, devoid of food and water. And Kevin said, "Look at Fultz eating those cheese fries. I'm done. I'm done."
He was okay. Let me just correct the record here. He wasn't wolfing them down. He was eating one at a time.
But he was doing them at it at a rapid pace.
Yeah, sure. With Markelle, like he can eat he can eat how he wants.
No, he can't. Not in your opinion. This was Kevin O'Connor, the scout, and he said, "Look at him eating those fries. I'm done."
I want to make a joke. I want to make a joke, but I can't say it.
I said, "You're out on Markelle Fultz because of the cheese fries." I'm out. That you know what? That was the moment. I'm gonna tell you, Kevin, that I was very excited about you. And like, if people say, "Oh, he's just the guy that relies on the stats too much," that was a very old school scout take.
I'll tell you what.
That is the old guy in the crowd, the old school scout that says, "Look at the way he eats cheese fries.
I got a better one for you.
This is a massive red flag."
I got a better one for you. I got a better one. Last year at Summer League, I was sitting near I think it was Sixers, Lakers, whoever it was. Near, I think I put this in the Ringer Slack at the time. I didn't tweet about it because it would have seemed like obsessively weird, but I'll say it now. So on the Jumbotron at Summer League last year, there was a kiss cam, and it was a pretty good kiss cam. It was funny, right?
Yep.
And like, so I was looking up at the kiss cam, and I looked at the Sixers bench. Mm-hmm. A lot of players were looking up at the kiss cam, which I probably shouldn't have been. Right. And a lot of people around me in the crowd were giggling and laughing. And I was looking at Markelle Fultz on the bench, looking up at the kiss cam. He had a blank face on the entire time, and everybody around me was like bursting out and laughing. I wasn't looking at the kiss cam, so it might not have been funny. But Markelle, with everybody laughing around me, Markelle had a straight face on. It was just an interesting little moment where it's like everybody's laughing except for Markelle.
So he is a humorless guy who eats cheese fries in a diabolical way.
No, Markelle, I feel like we are...
There's just friggin' red flags flying off the guy.
Well, with Markelle, I just have to say this. With Markelle Fultz, he was number one on everybody's board for good reason. He's a big guard with a strong body who can defend, who can rebound, who has athleticism, who can create off the dribble, who has a good handle.
Admit you're out on him. Don't talk him up. Admit you're out on him.
I am talking about right now. I'm setting up my point. Markelle showed everything this season after returning from his battle with the yips at the end of the season. He showed literally everything that made him the number one pick, except for the jump shot. So like the maturity, the eating, all that shit, right? You can, I'm not too worried about it because over time he's going to get older, he's going to mature. What I am still worried about is the jump shot. And the Sixers said yesterday, right, the group of reporters, that he looks better. If he looks better, that's extremely encouraging. Drew Hanlon's one of the best trainers, if not the best trainer out there. Working with Drew is a smart move for Markelle Fultz. But until he proves that he can shoot in a game situation, when he's tired, when pressure's on, it's a little bit scary for him moving forward because that is such an integral part of what made him a top prospect. So if you're the Spurs or Sixers yourself or any other team that might be trying to trade for him, I'd have hesitations until you see him out there on the court. And, on the flip side of that, you could say the same thing about Kawhi. Until he comes back after playing only 9 games last season, until he proves he's still that two-way elite, Hall of Fame level talent, player, I'd be scared to dump everything out there for him. So if you're the Sixers and you do truly believe that Markelle's making immense progress as a shooter, maybe you're like, no way we're trading this guy for Kawhi Leonard. There's no way we're doing it because of how he's looking this summer. Right? Because they also would want to see Kawhi. It goes both ways. And like that's why with this Kawhi Leonard stuff, I am just fascinated by like the negotiation battle that's going to go on with these teams trying to get him. Because until you see him, I don't know how to value him. Until you see Markelle, I don't know how to value him either. It's really nuts.
You know, I mentioned this last week that I thought, number one, they've got the assets, and number two, those two guys, that the friendship between the Spurs organization and Brett Brown is something that can make it happen. And then
for
go a little bit
A
further.
lot of trust, I'm sure.
The other thing is you did wonder, once the Paul George thing took place and he re-upped with Oklahoma City, you wondered if that was a chance. People can keep on saying, hey, he's going to L.A., he's going to L.A., he's going to L.A. We did all of that last year with Paul George and Oklahoma City. It's a rental. He's going to L.A., he's going to L.A. And you see the way, when push comes to shove, the way that one played out, that maybe it does, right? Even having him for a year with the ability to win and recruit with said player, that might actually be able to work out. Also, a guy that he trusts, theoretically. I assume his relationship with Brett Brown is a reasonable one.
Kawhi? Well, I mean, sure. I mean, you can look at it that way, or you could say, Brett Brown's tight with Greg Popovich. I don't want anything to do with Brett Brown. I mean, like that's like an elementary school style like way of looking at things, but like not much changes from our school days to when we're older. Sometimes we retain that mindset over the years, and I think really the other underlying factor, Chris, is that Dr. Glashow, the doctor that Kawhi saw when he was rehabbing in New York, he did it under the care of the Sixers chief medical officer. So if the Sixers can know more than anybody else, maybe even more than the Spurs, what Kawhi's health will look like moving forward.
But Kevin O conspiracy thinks that they talked about Markelle Fultz being able to hit shots yesterday
I just don't understand why. Like, what's the point? What's the point?
People want an update, and they want to be able to combat your cheese fry story.
But what's the point? Okay, look, if you Chris,
when they've got that kind of information out there,
you're hired
not laughing at a kiss cam,
you're hired
eating cheese fries in a diabolical way. They need some good press.
Well, Chris, here's the thing. If you're hired as Memphis Grizzlies general manager tomorrow, right? And
might be
a couple, who knows? A couple years from now, one of your players, let's just say Jaren Jackson hasn't, he's going through some funky injury type of thing, and he's going to rehab his jump shot, and he's doing over the summer. Would you want to draw attention to that when he has already proven, like, oh wow, do you want him doing it behind closed doors, or do you want to put more public pressure on setting an expectation that, hey, he's looking awesome, he's looking great? I don't think you want to set that expectation for fans. Fair. I think that's almost unfair to the player in a way.
That's fair.
That's why I think maybe it's a negotiating ploy, just to put that out there into the world that he is looking tremendous. And I could be dead ass wrong. Everybody seems to be indicating that he's improved. He's revising his mechanics. Drew Hanlon's a great coach. I just don't see the incentive to do it. That's all.
Last thing, Kevin, what has been your favorite part of Las Vegas?
Hanging out with everybody from the Ringer, really, and seeing like all the fans like of the Ringer, like saying hello and like showing their support. Just like both sides of that have just been like so fulfilling. Like even like little things like walking around the arena and someone like, shouting out Ringer or like shouting out my name or like just saying hello, saying like, we love what you do. People saying to Jason Concepcion, they love, NBA Desktop.
Right.
Like we had a booth there on Friday and Saturday. Liz Kelly was there and Alex Lee and Juliette Littman and Stephanie Stone and like a lot of people. Haley O'Shaughnessy was there on Saturday. And a lot of people came through. And like it was just cool to see a lot of fans. And then like at night, hanging out with people from the Ringer, like we went to karaoke on Saturday night, Sunday night, whatever night it was. Me and 5 other Ringer people, and then Titus and Tate came by later in the night with Tommy Alter. It was cool. It's a good time. It was like a little dive bar off the strip. Like everybody, like put it this way, there's a lot of really good singers at this karaoke bar. Like it was not low level karaoke. There was like this one guy who sang escapes me. There was this one guy there's this one guy who needs to get signed, and I wish I got his name. It's really good.
Kevin O Talent Scout.
Yeah, I mean,
you were there.
Good performances too.
Boy, if you were with Columbia House Records or whoever, you could have walked up there and given them a deal.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, yeah.
He said
Well, it's like with
this was
basketball.
not normal
it's
karaoke.
It's like with basketball. There's more to being a successful basketball
That's right.
player than skill. It's like you also need to figure out what kind of people these musicians and singers are as well. You need to interview them before you sign them to a deal.
It was.
If Columbia Records wants to give me a call, I'm
There
open
you go.
to it. Yeah, I love music.
It was awesome to get to that first night with Bill doing his podcast at
that was
Caesar's
great.
Palace. It was my opportunity. I got to meet everybody.
Yeah, no kidding,
right? 'Cause
man.
I've never met. I've communicated with these people for so long over the years. Whether it is Concepcion or Joe House or I mean, everybody was there. Everybody was there. And there was a picture that was out there. And then there was a picture of us, and it was very interesting to me. Okay, let me just do a couple things real quick. Number one, I am old. I just look young. Right, so everybody is like, I thought he was old.
That's a good thing. I don't
They
understand.
said I thought he was old. I'm not 50, right? But somebody, it was funny. Somebody tweeted after the picture. They were like, I thought he was 40.
I hope I have like no wrinkles when I'm your age.
This is what they said. They said I thought he was 40, and I was like, should I respond and say I'm really close? Like I'm really.
Wait, are you not allowed to say your age right now?
I don't care. I'm 39.
Cool.
Yeah.
When you turn 40?
I'm really
When's
close.
your birthday?
I don't want to talk about that.
Why?
Because that is the moment, right?
Why? Who cares?
Because I'm going to go through a horrible...
But you have a youthful spirit.
Yeah, but I'm going to go through
you
a horrible
have a youthful
moment.
spirit. You look younger than your age, which is all good things.
No, listen, I don't mind looking younger than my age, but it was fascinating that nobody thinks I look how I sound, right? Nobody. Yeah. Like, and the funniest ones were either I was 100% sure that Chris Vernon was a black guy, or
yes, Colin Sexton.
No, bow to him.
Yeah, he looks good. Looks pretty good.
I wanted to try to get you mad before we left.
Yeah, he looks good. He
doesn't need cheese fries. I asked him.
Really, you did? Okay.
No, I didn't.
I mean, you should ask him.
It's going to do it for another Ringer NBA show. Thanks to everybody for listening. This one from Las Vegas, thanks to Caesar's Palace, and we will talk to you next week.
Anything is possible. Anything is possible.
I've never been in Caesars, I don't think. I remember last year walking around. I was in Vegas for the first time.
Oh, it's great.
I don't think I've walked around Caesars. It's very nice in here. I like it.
Oh, it's
chill.
absolutely great.
It's chill and yet it's fun. Nice
Kevin,
restaurants
and
too.
Getting to do a podcast in person with you is an absolute treasure. We made it all the way through without getting at each other. I think we're friendlier in person.
Yeah.
Right?
I think so too.
I think we're friendlier in person. Bow to Colin Emerson. Bow to Colin Emerson. Bow to Colin Emerson. Bow to Colin Emerson. Bow to Colin